Today we're going to begin our unit on trigonometry, and we are going to start back at the beginning. So if you happen to have math second semester last year, you didn't get a chance to see trigonometry, and so this is just going to begin with the basics. And we're going to start with the tangent ratio. So normally I would have the class do this activity. Everybody gets a protractor, a ruler, and a piece of paper. And then depending on when your birthday is, you would draw either a 20-degree angle triangle, a 30-degree angle right triangle, or a 40-degree right triangle. So the class would be split up so that everybody kind of gets one triangle to draw. And then the neat thing is that when you have your triangle, you can calculate your ratio of the opposite side to your angle and then your adjacent side. So your opposite side is always directly across from the angle given. So this is opposite, whereas the word adjacent just means it's beside the angle. So this is my opposite and this is my adjacent. This is my opposite and this is my adjacent. And what we would see is that this ratio of y over x to 4 decimal places, once we organized it in a table, that everybody who had 20 degrees would all have the same ratio, everybody with 30 degrees would have the same ratio, and everybody for 40 degrees would have the same ratio. So it doesn't matter the sides of the opposite, the length sides of the opposite and the adjacent, because you end up with the same ratio. And then in our calculator, if you can find the tan button, so there should be kind of in the middle of all your buttons, there should be one called tan. Make sure you're in degrees, so that's another big thing. So if you look at your screen, make sure there is a D there, or a DEG, or DGR for degrees, and then if you type in tan 20, tan 30, or tan 40, then that ratio pops up. So our calculator is already pre-programmed for all of those ratios that happen. Okay, so in a right triangle, if we know one value of the angles, we can predict the value of the ratio of the two sides. In particular, the tangent ratio measures the ratio of the opposite and the adjacent side. So this is just an alpha. So tan alpha is equal to opposite over adjacent. It's saying tan of whatever that angle is equal to the ratio of your opposite and your adjacent side. In the triangle shown, which side is the opposite and which is the adjacent to the 75? So whenever you're looking for your opposite side, remember, go to your angle, go directly across from it, and this would be your opposite side. And then right beside it would be your adjacent side. Now notice I'm not using this other side that's also adjacent to it because it also has a special name. It's called the hypotenuse. Okay, the hypotenuse is always directly across from 90 degrees. It's always the longest side. So evaluate tan of 75. This is where you just want to go into your calculator. Again, make sure that you're in degree mode and hit tan 75 equals, and you should get 3.7321 if I round properly. Normally, especially with final answers, we usually keep it to 1 or 2 decimal places depending on the question that's given. So 3.7 would be fine. Determine the length of G in the triangle shown. So the neat thing is now is that if we're missing part of our ratio, we can figure it out. So we can go, well, the tan of 75 is equal to, remember, this is my opposite side. And this is my adjacent side. So we can say tan 75 is equal to my opposite, which is G, over my adjacent, which is 12. Well, I know what tan 75 is. Remember, we said it was 3.7321 equals G over 12. And I'm just trying to solve for G. So I'm going to put this over 1. and cross multiply. So 1 times G is just G, and 3.7321 times 12, and we get 44.8. And so what that means is if I have an angle of 75 degrees and I know my adjacent side is 12, then using my ratio, I can figure out that side G has to be 44.8. Okay, let's try another one. So it says determine the length of B in the triangle shown. So here's my angle right here. So I'm going to start by labeling my sides. So this is my opposite side, and this would be my adjacent side, because this side right here is my hypotenuse. So it's always good. I always like to put my hypotenuse in there too, so I know where everything is. All right, so what do I have here? I have a 55, so tan of 55 degrees is equal to my opposite side, which is 7, over my adjacent side, which is B. Okay, so the nice thing is that the calculator can do all this work for us. We just need to get B all by itself. So I'm going to put this over 1 and cross multiply. And when I do, I get B times 55 equals 1 times 7, which is just 7. Notice I put the B out front. That'll just help us when we have numbers not to get mixed up on our angle. So if you can always put your side length at the beginning of your trig ratio, that will certainly help you. Okay, I want B all by itself, so I'm going to divide each side by the tan of 55. And those cancel, and I get B equals 7 divided by tan 55. Now, try this in your calculator. It should be able to do it all kind of in one step. I should be able to go 7 divided by tan 55 and hit equals, and I get 4.9. So 4.9 is the length of B. So if we know the opposite and adjacent sides, then we should also be able to figure out what the angle is. So if we have our ratio, like I said, our calculator is pre-programmed with all those ratios in it. We just need to figure them out. So here's the angle that I'm looking for down in the corner. I'm going to start again. Here's my opposite. Here's my adjacent. And here's my hypotenuse. So I'm going to say tan of theta, that's what I'm looking for. That's what we're searching for, is that theta is equal to 8 over 11. Okay, so in order to find our angle, we want to get theta all by itself. So I want to lose this tan. And to do that, I'm going to actually multiply it by a tan inverse. But what I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So tan inverse is in your calculator. If you look at your tan button and then look just above it, you should see a tan to the -1. So a tan inverse and a tan, these actually cancel each other out. So they're gone, leaving me with just theta. But I still have tan inverse over here of 8 over 11. So to get to that tan inverse, you're going to have to press like your second function button or shift or whichever on your calculator it is. Mine's a second function. I'm going to go second function tan. I'm going to hit brackets here and go 8 divided by 11 and end my bracket and hit equals. And I get theta is equal to 36 degrees. And we usually round it to the nearest degree. So 36 degrees is what we have. So when you're looking for an angle, we're going to use what's called the inverse button. Okay, and that's where you're going to have to go shift in order to get in your primary trig ratio in order to get to that. Okay, so it says find the measure of the missing angle. So we're going to have to figure this out in terms of which angle do we want to find. So let's start with, it doesn't matter, let's start with this one. So if I put my angle here, that means this becomes my opposite side, and this one becomes my adjacent, and this is my hypotenuse. So that's why it's important to actually put in the angle first, because your opposite and adjacent sides will depend on where your angle is. Okay, so tan theta is equal to my opposite side, which is 41, and my adjacent side, which is 17. Okay, again, remember we're looking to get theta all by itself. So I'm going to multiply by a tan inverse to each side. Tan inverse and tan will cancel out, leaving me with just theta. Tan inverse of 41 over 17. And here I go back to my calculator. So second function, tan bracket 41 divided by 17 bracket equals 67 degrees. Okay, so I'm still looking for my third angle, but I am not going to bother using trig. I know that all the angles in a triangle add up to 180. So if I subtract out the two angles that I know, I think I'm left with 23 degrees, which would be right there. All right, that brings us to the end of the tan function. There is homework or worksheet for a little bit of practice, which you'll be able to find in Google Classroom.